everybody, it's almost the first official day of summer, but if you look at the forecast this week, you would swear it's summer. High 80s, super humid. Today we're going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite things about summertime, heirloom tomatoes. There's no other time of the year to enjoy them. If you eat them any other season, it's basically like eating crispy water. It's inevitable that every year I purchase way too many tomato plants, and no matter how hard I try, it's almost impossible for me to be able to harvest all of them, which leads to tomatoes falling in the ground and seeding themselves for the following year. So this year I decided to scale way back and only get 8 tomato plants, kind of banking on the idea that we might have a few volunteers. But to my surprise, we have more volunteers than we've ever had. So I want to talk to you guys about what exactly is a tomato volunteer plant, and this happens with other vegetables as well, but also the basics of soil fertility and how you should be preparing all of your plants in the soil so you can yield the best results for your plants at home. So the first step is knowing that we grew tomatoes last year and we didn't get to all of them. We're going to scour our garden to try to figure out where these volunteers have popped up. Now keep in mind that it doesn't have to be just the garden that you're looking in. I found these volunteers everywhere when I'm mowing the lawn, so just pay attention and know what a tomato plant looks like. As I'm sitting here, I have maybe 3 or 4 plants right in front of me that are probably the best of the crop, and I have probably 20 different volunteer tomato plants that have popped up. My goal, if possible, I'd love to be able to keep them all, maybe share them with some friends. But we're going to focus on transplanting these because otherwise if I leave them here, they're totally going to snuff out my fennel and my oregano and everything else. So I want to give them adequate space for them to grow up and be the tomatoes they were always meant to be. Okay, the first thing you're going to need is a trowel to carefully dig out our tomato plants, and then some sort of container to transport the tomatoes in because their root system, since they're so young, is still pretty fragile. And these are repurposed from lavender plants that I got for my bees. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is get in around the tomato plant and weed anything that's not the tomato. So when you're digging in, you absolutely are positive that the only thing you're getting to is a tomato. Okay, and I think I know some folks that might enjoy these. There you go. The new girls. There you go. So now that I've weeded, we're going to grow approximately 3 inches out straight down into the soil. Make sure we're not damaging the roots all the way around. Loosening it up, rocking back and forth a little bit like that. And now we gently go down, trying and use the trowel to lift up the tomato plant, carefully holding on to the roots. So you see we have the tomato plant here and its root structure. I'm going to go ahead and put it into its container for transport, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so what we're going to do with these particular tomato plants is put them in this planter. Now the fun thing about this is when I bought my house, this zinc container was buried in the woods, and I always had my eyes on it for something, and today I thought it'd be a good opportunity to put it to good use. So inside of this container, I have a layer on the very bottom of rocks, followed by a layer of tree bark, sort of mulch. And then on top of that, we have some native soil and some compost. And then I have a bag on top of raised bed potting mix. And that's simply just for drainage in here because this isn't directly in contact with the ground. So one of the things that's very important when we're planting is soil conditions. So this here, you'll see it looks absolutely beautiful. The color is deep, rich, it's super airy. You can't just plant a seed or transplant a plant into your soil. It could be light gray. I mean, ultimately you want it to be looking quite dark like this, and shoot, maybe even darker than this, maybe almost black. So you don't want to be putting plants into a really, really dense soil that's almost as hard as a rock and it's like a pale gray color. So that means usually it's super clay rich and there's not much nutrients in it. So what you'll need to do is break up all that soil so you get some oxygen to the roots. And you're also going to want to feed in some compost as well to give your plant a really good nutrition and give it a really good step forward. Here, we're just going to act as if this was soil you're planting in the ground. First thing we're going to do is dig out a little bit of a trench here in the center. I don't know, probably 6 or 8 inches deep. So now we'll carefully take it out and you'll see the condition of the soil here like I was talking about. You can see the contrast between the color, this rich, dark brown, almost auburn color soil. And then here, because I definitely have a lot of I definitely have a lot of clay in my soil, a lot of rocks. We're gonna put this in here. Now, what you would do in your house, if you haven't already pre-fed a container like this with all these beautiful nutrient-dense ingredients, essentially is what we're making here. It's basically like a nice batter for our plants to grow in, is have some compost. This is compost that I generate here at my house. You can buy it at a store. You can have a compost heap out in your backyard. So what we're gonna do is put a good scoop of that in the center and just kind of work that in. So you'll be doing this with your soil. Work it in, make a nice mixture of your native soil and your compost, because you don't want to put it directly in the compost, because sometimes the compost can be so strong it overwhelms the plant. It may be super high in nitrogen. It could actually burn the roots of the plant and actually kill it. So now we have this in here. And this tomato plant right now looks a little wilted because, truth be told, it's 80 degrees today, but that's not to be a worry at all. Once we water it in, it'll perk back up tomorrow morning. So now I just put it in just so that the tops, the root base is under the ground, and press down a little bit of pressure to keep it secured in place, because if we get rain and it's too loose, it'll fall over and uproot itself. So that's our first plant. And now we're gonna move into 2 more plants here. All right, guys, this project's done. These tomatoes look a little bit wilted, but like I said, after we water them, they'll perk up beautifully tomorrow. So in closing, we have free tomatoes, a free container. I had to get some potting soil and some mulch. And now I'm gonna spend the rest of my evening tracking down all the rest of the tomato volunteers on my property and transplanting them to different areas so this becomes a tomato paradise. So what did we learn today? A volunteer. A volunteer could be a tomato plant, could be a cucumber, could be any other fruit or vegetable that's fruited itself on your property. And the cool thing about that is it starts to build up a bit of a hardiness to your specific area. So there's a good chance it will grow and it'll produce a larger yield than the plant that came before it. The more generations of you collecting your seeds and transplanting them, they're going to become more and more hardy to your zone. That's it, guys. If you liked this video, shoot me a message on Instagram. Show me some things that you're particularly in love with right now when it comes to summertime. For me, it's always heirloom tomatoes. There's no other time to eat them throughout the year. So look forward to hearing from you guys. Get outside, get some of that beautiful sun, and get your hands in the soil.